Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your latest instalment in a little bit of World Cup discussion, because obviously it is the United Pubcast and obviously very sort of Manchester United centric, but there is a break from football or supposed football, but the World Cup is dominating all the headlines. And obviously everyone who tunes into this does know we're an Australian-based Man United podcast. And Larry, not often Australia dominates world sort of football headlines, but today they've found themselves doing so in terms of getting that result against Denmark and qualifying from the group. And obviously sets up a quite sort of tasty sort of round of 16 meeting with potentially the greatest of all time, depending on what side of the fence you sit on, but in regards to Lionel Messi and Argentina. So a few sort of tumultuous hours in a good way for Australian football, but talk me through your feelings.
Absolutely. Well, before I start, Tom, I should start by saying good evening to everyone around the world, but good day to the Aussies, because what a phenomenal result this morning. If you are an Australian, you can't help but be proud. And you and I think we will both put our hands up and say not the most passionate of Socceroos fans in general, I think would be a fair statement, but you can't help but be proud. It's a phenomenal achievement, because if you understand the issues in the pathways of Australian football, how difficult it is for us to get the best crop of talent, and I genuinely believe we don't have the most talented Australians playing football at the highest level in this country because of the politics and the system, which, you know, we could do a whole video on. But if you understand the ins and outs, the politics, the challenges that football faces in this country, it is a phenomenal achievement. It really is. So as an Australian, you have to be absolutely proud. So in terms of my feelings, that's it. True Aussie spirit dug in as underdogs and have come out second only to France. And when you look at the points table, I know France played a B team against Tunisia. We leave the group equal on points with the current world champions. It's a hell of a statement. And
I saw a stat as well in regards to, well, we'll get into how good it feels in Australia. But imagine if you're Tunisia, you've just beaten the world champions and got a result against Denmark as well, and you haven't sort of got out of the group. So it's an interest in terms of the way you look at it. And that sort of point you do sort of make, and obviously it'll come up in discussion in regards to Australian football. But I've had a couple of discussions with a few mates and people on Twitter over the last couple of days in regards to my, I'd say, relationship with Australia. And they say, how could you not support Australia? It's not I don't support Australia. I want Australia to win. I was over the moon when Matthew Leckie put the ball in the goal. I'd love nothing more than Australia to get the result. I almost said Man United, but I'd love nothing more than Australia to get the result against Argentina and win the World Cup. I want Australia to win. Of course I do. I love nothing more. It's just if they concede a goal or lose, I'm not going to lose any sleep. I don't get angry. If Manchester United concede a goal, hell, if they concede a corner, I almost need a week off work to recover. Like, in terms of that's how angry I get, sort of thing, how frustrated I have that emotional investment. If Australia's let a goal in or we lose to Argentina, I'll think, okay, that's a shame, we'll move on. But with Man United, as I said, I need to take a week off work almost thing. So I do want Australia to win, and I'm over the moon. And obviously we'll get into the ins and outs of the performance in Australian football in general. But Jamie, good to see you, mate, over from Northern Ireland. Hope all is well. Rob from It's a Football Thing just had a good chat in regards to dissected the game and sort of had a bit of analysis over it. So go back and have a look at It's a Football Thing if you're not subscribed to the latest video there. Adam, good to see you, mate. Couldn't believe it. Honestly, it was unreal. We'll get into the performance and sort of what it means, and obviously look ahead to the Argentina match as well. And Jamie, incredible achievement. It is of course it is an incredible achievement. What do you make of that in regards to, Larry, the reaction? And the positive reaction is justified and it's the right thing. We do have to enjoy this because it is a very good achievement. However, in regards to what Australian football and us as fans and the media and the FFA themselves are calling for from this team, well, not this team, but our national team in general, is you can't just go to the World Cup and just sort of make up the numbers. You have to go there and qualify out of the group. So that's almost an expectation. Now, sometimes that's going to be the case. Sometimes it's not the case. But that is the expectation. We demand that if we didn't do this, it would be a failure. And now it's done. We do qualify out of the group. And it's public holiday. Like, oh my God, what an achievement. I'm saying, is it the achievement? Is it sort of we overestimating what we've done? Like, I'm not saying we haven't. Like, it is a great achievement, but I'm saying it's what we demand of these players, or what we demand of the national team. But suddenly we're thinking, like, oh, we had no chance. But if we didn't get out of the group, we'd label it a failure.
I don't necessarily think I would have labelled it a failure, and I don't think most Australians would have. If you look at the group, and with all due respect, Denmark are the ones who should feel like they underachieved.
I thought they were going to top the group.
I thought that was a bit ambitious, but nonetheless, I thought Denmark and France should have definitely qualified from this group. So I think if you're Denmark, you should feel aggrieved. But if you're Australia, I mean, just given who we drew against, I don't think it would have been necessarily fair to expect the Aussies to progress out of the group. I think progression.
I don't think in regards to sort of isolated. I don't think in regards to, I understand what you mean. I do agree, but in regards to this group specifically, okay, the world champions, you got Denmark, a good team. But I mean, in general, Australia going to a World Cup, we have to get out of the group. In terms of that's the demand. Obviously, sometimes you're going to get a strong group, sometimes you're going to get a weak group. But the demand is you can't just go there and make up the numbers. You have to get out of the group. Suddenly we've got out of the group. And again, I'm not shitting on the parade in terms of I'm over the moon. It is a good achievement. But in terms of the reaction, I think this should be the expectation to where we want to be.
No,
We shouldn't be losing.
I don't think so. I don't. I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree with that. I really think, given this Australian side, with all due respect, the caliber of players we have, well, that's the thing. I mean, if this was the 2006 side, I would agree with you. I would think you would expect that team to progress to the final 16. And to be honest, I think that 2006 side, in hindsight, should have gone further. We can go back in time, looking back at the game against Italy, but ultimately, given this group of players, making the final 16 is a massive achievement because we are not, with all due respect, the top 16 countries competing in this World Cup. So I think it's a phenomenal achievement. I think it's understated regardless, if I'm being honest. And anything from this point onwards is considered success. Now, if they go on and beat Argentina, that would be a hell of a statement. No, I don't think it'll happen, I have to say. But if they manage to pull it off, that's one of those it goes down in Australian sporting history if they manage to pull that off. I don't think Australia have ever progressed beyond the final 16, if I've got that right. So they managed to pull it off.
06, last time we got out of the groups, obviously 2006, and you mentioned that team, and I maybe could have done a little bit more, especially that round of 16 game against Italy. Italy went down to 10 men, and obviously the last-minute penalty could have done a little bit further. And then obviously I think it was Ukraine, potentially. I'm sure Rob would remember, I think it was Ukraine in the next round Italy played. You'd expect that team full of Premier League stars from Australia to get the result against Ukraine. So who knows what could have been in 2006. But we've never sort of been to this stage before or progressed from the stage in regards to Argentina. Stephen here, good to see him, mate. The win against Tunisia was the realistic goal. Again, looking back in terms of this specific team and how good this team is, or how weak or good, how you look at it, yes, okay, I'm not sort of saying I demanded this team to get out of the group, but just in general, Australia going to a World Cup, the expectation we've sort of built ourselves up now should be to get out of the group. Now, I think that enjoy it by all means, but I think sort of have a sort of level-headed discussion in terms of not losing our mind. Okay, step one, get out of the group, so let's see what we can do next. But obviously the team has performed very well. Chris, good to see you, mate, as always. In regards to this Argentina match, we're going to get into the ins and outs of sort of Lionel Messi, etc., and obviously Lisandro Martinez will throw a Manchester United spin on it. But what can this Argentina win, lose, or draw? Let's dream a little. Let's say we can win this game. What does it mean for Australian football? Because I'm treating this as a little bit like a cup run, like in terms of just enjoying the ride. Because I don't think so far what we've seen changes the game in this country. I saw us do amazing things in 2006, and the game stood still, and the game went backwards, where we didn't use that as a springboard to progress as a game. I'm just thinking Australia. The game, when I mean Australia, the game in general has a chance to really sort of develop and grow off the back of this result or potential result against Argentina. Like we've seen the crowds down in Melbourne, we've seen potential crowds in Sydney over the next week or so for the Argentina game. It is galvanised, but I'm just thinking there is a chance to draw up a sort of hypothetical scenario where we get past Lionel Messi in Argentina. The FFA could just sit back and say, look, the game's working. Look at this. Look at these results we're achieving. But I don't think these results can mask over the absolute mess, unfortunately, the game is in this country. Like it's almost like a good cup run. Like look at Wigan. Like when Wigan won the FA Cup, were they going in the right direction? No, they got relegated the next week.
Yeah, mate, but I think we just got to focus on the positives with this. I mean,
look, just enjoy it, of course.
You could do a whole video on what's wrong with Australian football, but for this specific moment, whether it's a catalyst for change, I think that really depends how far we go. If we manage to, this should be a reminder to anyone in Australian football governance that what could be the fact that we're in the final 16, given the lack of investment, the lack of proper infrastructure, the political red tape that forbids and prohibits talented kids from progressing in the Australian game. This should be a symbol of what could really be achieved if we actually got things right. And actually got the football clubs of the NSL and the A-League working in cohesion with each other. But, I want to keep it on the positives. I also appreciate that there are listeners who listen to this who might not be from Australia and don't understand the structures that are set up here and why they are so complicated. But for the run for what it is, let's enjoy it. Let's root on the Socceroos. Let's hope they beat Argentina. And let's hope Alessandro Martinez doesn't start, because he can stay clear, still keep the label of best defender in the world, and he doesn't have to deal with the mess that Matt Leckie, Mitchell Duke, and co might potentially afford the Argentinians.
We'll get into Lionel Messi's legacy. Like, look, as much as we want Australia to go through now, so we're Manchester United fans, so all Man United fans have a soft spot for Argentina, regardless of Sandro Martinez, obviously the relationship with England and Argentina, etc. But also Lionel Messi. Could you imagine a world where Lionel Messi... Now, I might drop out, Larry. My internet is playing up, so if I do sort of kick on, but Sandro Martinez and Lionel Messi, could you imagine a world where Lionel Messi gets knocked out to the Socceroos in the World Cup? Like, his legacy sort of doesn't deserve that. Now, we would like that as Australian fans, but it's interesting, like, in terms of he deserves a little bit better than that. But fingers crossed we can get the job done. Chris here saying no live side in Sydney is a joke, regardless if Australian went well or not. I have just seen it is in Darwin Harbour. They have just announced it maybe an hour ago. It is going to be in Darwin Harbour, 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I probably won't be making the trip in, because I have to leave quite early to get in the city at 6 a.m. But I'm hoping they do get a few thousand there as well. And Stephen here, for Australian football, beating Argentina is game-changing. For football in Australia, it's just another day at the office. Families still struggle to afford, play the game, and the kids will leave, which goes back to my original point, Larry. You're completely right. We just have to enjoy the ride, sort of bask in the sort of positivity and the glory of it. But ultimately, my fear is this, and it's not a fear, like, it could be the catalyst for change. Like, the game really should kick on, win, lose, or draw against Argentina. Having Lionel Messi line up against Australia in a World Cup is what the thing sort of dreams are made of, and the game really should take advantage of this. Will they? No, I can't see a situation where they do, and I wouldn't call it poetic justice, but move forward to the game in regards to our chances against Argentina, Larry. Again, not poetic justice because I want Australia to win. However, I do look at it and think, if Lionel Messi scored against Australia, which is obviously, unfortunately, a very good chance of that happening, I would kind of love it, because Lionel Messi, in regards to the development of the Australian football, Lionel Messi wouldn't have made it in Australia. I'm just thinking it would really highlight what could be in this game in terms of if we're developing the right players. No, I'm not expecting him to develop a Lionel Messi, but he wouldn't have made it in Australian football. So I'm just thinking, if he was to knock us out, it would really highlight on this world stage. Australia's deservedly sort of got to this stage. Argentina's there, and I just think these things need to be highlighted and discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm not quite in the same camp. I think Messi's legacy, like Ronaldo's, is cemented. I think he could leave the game of football tomorrow, and he goes down as one of, if not the greatest player to ever lace a pair of boots on a football pitch. But I mean, what Messi is playing for, and where it becomes interesting for Argentina, he's got the opportunity to cement his legacy. I think, like I said, he can retire tomorrow, and there's no debate about him being one of the best. If he secures a World Cup for Argentina, I think, and we said this, it's equal for Ronaldo as well, to be fair. I think either of those two, if either of them manage to lift the World Cup at the end of this, there can't be a debate for me. They've both won it all. They've both won a Euros or a Copa America, comparable trophies. They've both won very close in terms of Ballon d'Ors. Whoever of those two, if they manage to win this World Cup, for me, goes down as the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, we'll get into Ronaldo and Bruno and Portugal in a little bit, but just the last bit on the Argentina and Socceroos game. Now, obviously, we're sitting here. Argentina are favourites. They're very likely to win. But in regards to this game, can you see, obviously, Saudi Arabia beat Argentina a week ago. We can beat Argentina on our day if Argentina have an off day. But what are you thinking? Have Argentina already had their off day? And Australia already overachieved in regards to get this result? Or do you see a potential chance in what you've seen of both teams this tournament, where it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility if Socceroos do it?
Look, I don't think you'll see any more off days, to be honest. I think when you're one of the favourites for the competition, the group stages is a bit tricky because you've got the talent, and you also know that there are bigger fish to fry. So I do expect a professional performance, but what I will say is, if there is a game for an upset, this is one. Because if you're an Argentinian player, man for man, you've got it all over this Australian side. So there is room for complacency. But I think what we've seen from Graham Arnold and what he's been so successful in, I can't believe we're 14 minutes into this video. We haven't mentioned the coach. Graham Arnold, it's massive for him. I don't know what his ambitions are in terms of managing in Europe, and whether that's something he wants to go on to achieve. We've seen the likes of Ange Postecoglou doing bits with Celtic at the moment. If he can pull this off, there'll be European clubs dying for his signature. It's going to legitimately be the individual brilliance of Argentina versus the tactical setup of Australia. If Australia are going to win, it's going to be a tactical masterclass. Can Graham Arnold get it done? That's going to be the massive question.
No, fingers crossed, because, look, it is Sunday morning, so Saturday night, Sunday morning, 6 a.m. for us here in Australia. I'm sure we'll all be up. And look, besides Australia, the whole world will be tuned in because Lionel Messi is playing a game of football at the World Cup. The whole world will be watching Australia play. And ultimately, regardless of our steps in the future, that is a positive thing. So fingers crossed we can give a good performance and account of ourselves. And who knows, stranger things have happened. Now, in a World Cup, Australia knocking Argentina out could be up there with one of the most iconic results ever. Who knows? That is what the game is there for. But we'll move on, and you touched in terms of Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, we'll try and sort of caveat every Ronaldo discussion we have at the moment in regards to he's not a Manchester United player anymore. Still very fresh in the mind. He kind of still feels like it, but he's not. So let's look at the Diego Dalot, Bruno Fernandes side of the Portuguese argument. Bruno Fernandes. Kylian Mbappe is there. I understand Mbappe is doing very well, and there are other good players in the tournament as well. You look at potential Cody Gakpo could be a Man United player, but Bruno Fernandes, is he the player of the tournament so far, or is he on track to be the player of the tournament?
Absolutely. I think he's absolutely killing it. At the moment, like as it currently stands, I'd put it between Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and Kylian Mbappe. I think Mbappe's been absolutely brilliant for France. You know, on the French squad, and I don't mean to deviate too far. I'm sure we will come to France, but I think France might have benefited from Benzema's injury. I think that they got better individual players if he's fit. Current Ballon d'Or winner, but I think Mbappe really enjoys being the star man. And I know there's an element of criticism for the ego he has, but because he enjoys being the star, I think that's why you're seeing such a good and effective World Cup from Mbappe. I think if Benzema's there, Mbappe might get in his way. He might feel the need to overplay his hand because he wants to be the star. So I actually think it's balanced the France side out. And I think that's why you're seeing such positive performances from France and why you had the bold prediction of France not progressing from the group. They're well back in it. In saying that, I think Bruno has been excellent. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists speak for themselves. And then there's Marcus Rashford. 3 goals out of the group stages. I don't think you could have asked for more.
Well, you look at Bruno Fernandes, he even assists his own goals in terms of he did assist his goal for that cross, which Ronaldo, obviously, Bruno is the best player by a hair's width in regards to that Ronaldo discussion, because Bruno Fernandes, I think, we do look at Cristiano Ronaldo and the influence he has on this Portuguese team as like a focal point in the way he plays, and some people, like same as when he was at Man United, some people saw that as a positive, some people saw that as a negative. Okay, you have him in there, he's that threat, but does he take away from other elements of the team? And Bruno Fernandes has come in for such sort of criticism and praise, depending on how you look at it over the last year, especially for Manchester United. Some people say he plays better with Ronaldo, some people say he plays better without Ronaldo. I'm just thinking he's one of those ones now, which I've seen the last couple of weeks for Manchester United, especially for Portugal now. I don't want to say he's developing into his own player, because Bruno's always been his own player. But he's starting to look at, and I don't want to get into the whole captain's debate around Bruno Fernandes, but he's starting to, I don't know if the word is mature or not, but he's starting to look a bit more mature and a little bit more of a sort of showing a little bit sort of further leadership qualities, especially in this Portuguese team. So can you see a situation where Bruno Fernandes is leading Portugal to the World Cup?
Absolutely. He'll be critical to Portugal achieving anything. I don't want to, I'll be sensible about it. I don't think Ronaldo has been very good for Portugal, but oddly enough, I think that the other players around in the Portuguese side do look good. My only concern with Portugal, though, would be Ronaldo's, like I mentioned, I don't think Ronaldo's really contributing with goals at the moment. So I wonder, when they get into the latter stages, do you see that they have enough in them, Portugal? I think defensively they look okay. I think Cancelo's looked a little bit suspect, but overall it is a good defense. Do they have enough goals in them to challenge the best sides? That's really the question I have over Portugal. Outside
I think
of
goals.
that,
Well, look, you're right, but goals is an interesting one, because I think all of us before the tournament said Spain don't have the goals in them. They go and score 7 in terms of the way they play. I think when Cristiano Ronaldo is in the team, even if the goals aren't coming through him, what do the defenders do? They have 4 people marking Cristiano Ronaldo. That can free up a Bruno Fernandes, a Bernardo Silva, a João Felix. I'm not saying that's happening, but
on your point with Spain, I think Spain are a different kettle of fish because they keep the ball so well.
Yeah.
and ultimately they will frustrate teams, and which will allow them to get the goals. Portugal don't keep or retain possession the way Spain do, so they won't be able to frustrate sides. They're actually going to need to. They're going to need their individual players to step up. And I think there are goals in their team, but if Ronaldo doesn't find his best form, I think for Portugal to win the World Cup, Ronaldo needs to be at his best, and I haven't seen Ronaldo at his best for a good 6 months. So of course, he's capable, but he needs to turn it on soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just before we move on, we just touch on Spain for 20 seconds there. Chris here saying, anyone talking about Spain? Is there anything in regards to the sort of potential World Cup winners? We're talking Brazil, France, Argentina, England. Throw Socceroos in there, for God's sake. Spain. Are we just going to be lazy and say maybe they don't have that striker to win the World Cup? Or can they score 7 goals without a striker? Are you putting them in that discussion, I should say?
Well, they won a 2010 World Cup without a striker. I know Fernando Torres was in the squad, but I mean, he was off the bench.
David Villa was in that team, and
but David Villa, do you call him a striker? He's more of a wide player. You know what I mean?
Striker for me. But yeah, look, I know what you mean in terms of very similar in the way they play. Xavi and Iniesta, in terms of the way they played.
The way they played was around their midfielders, you know. Look, no, I think Spain can absolutely win it. I think people are dismissing them because of the lack of striker, but you don't need I mean, it's funny. In Portugal's example, just the way Portugal play, I believe they do need Ronaldo to chip in, but
it's like Man City. Spain and Man City, very similar.
Yeah, exactly. And look, City won the league last season without a striker. You know what I mean? So, I mean, in a cup competition as well, where the emotion is so high, if you can keep the ball, you'll mentally defeat the opposition before the ball's in the back of the net. And that's what Spain are doing better than any other football team. And I've got to say Brazil as well. Brazil have probably put in the most controlled performances I've seen so far this World Cup. And I think between those two sides, they've got the ability to frustrate teams even before the ball's in the back of the net. But yeah, can Spain win it? Of course they can. But the difficulty with Spain is, let me ask you this. If Spain go behind in a game, do you think they've got the ability to come back? That's where I think they'll get frustrated.
Oh, yeah. Look, it's an interesting one, and you don't know until that situation happens. Obviously, they're a team full of sort of world-class professionals. Yeah, it wouldn't shock you if they go 1-0 down and come back to win 2 or 3-1. That's very sort of likely possibility, but you don't know until they're faced with that challenge. But we'll move on in regards to another, again, like Spain in regards to no one's really talking about lifting the trophy. Now, maybe it is down to their past and also in terms of the potential tournament tree likely situation where they play France in a week's time, but England. And I want to touch on, obviously, the Manchester United aspect of it. Marcus Rashford, he's coming for so much criticism, I think rightly so on this podcast, especially from me over the last year or two. And he's starting to maybe get his head down now and sort of reaping the rewards. But Marcus Rashford's performance against Wales, now Wales, my God, like they'll be on bad. I was shocked how bad Wales were or have been throughout this tournament. USA absolutely pummeled them as well. I think they got the draw against USA, but performance-wise, Wales have been absolutely shocking, deservingly eliminated at the early stage. But Marcus Rashford against Wales, cracking free kick, kind of his distance. If it's a bit closer, you don't really fancy Marcus Rashford from that range, but he can get a little bit of power from a bit further out.
Free kick, though.
And obviously a very good second goal as well to go past a player. And I think if one of those players, if that was Mbappe going past a player, and okay, a bit of poor goalkeeping, but if Mbappe goes past a player and sort of slots it, we're talking what a fantastic goal. I think we need to say that about Marcus Rashford as well. So the reason I bring Rashford into it is at the start of this tournament, he was lucky to go, or he found himself in a bit of form for Man United, so not lucky to go. That's what I mean. He's probably in 26-man squad. He's probably 23rd or 24th picked. So quite lucky to go. I'm glad he has gone, but fortunate to go. But then he started on the bench. So there's Raheem Sterling ahead of him, etc. And I'm just thinking after that performance, and obviously goal in the first game against Iran, does he? Their game is against Senegal, I believe. Their knockout stages against Senegal. Yeah. Does he start that game, or does Southgate revert to type?
Do you put him on the left? I can't see Southgate benching Harry Kane. And the thing is, Harry Kane hasn't scored, but he does chip in with assists.
Oh, no, Harry Kane starts.
Yeah, that's the thing. If Rashford starts, he starts on the left. I thought Foden was equally brilliant. I really do.
Well, he's their best player, I think, Phil Foden.
Can I be honest with you, Tom, as well, on Phil Foden? I know Man City are huge rivals, but you have to like him. he's good to watch. He's just pleasing on the
I
eye.
don't look. I don't like him in terms of he looks like someone you could easily punch, but as a footballer, yeah,
Shit haircuts, but
look, he's a
so much
special
footballing
footballer.
ability.
No, of
Yeah,
course.
he's a wonderful footballer. I mean, he could really. I think he's England's most talented player. I'm willing to say that. Rashford for me has to start. I'd start him on the left. I'd put Kane through the middle, Saka on the right, Rashford on the left. That's how I'd go. But yeah, Rashford's been phenomenal. He really has. The thing is with Rashford, let me ask you this. You and I have debated time and time again his ceiling. And I'm going to bring it up again because he's in a rich vein of form at the moment. And when I saw him in that first game against Brighton at Old Trafford, I thought he looked physically sharp, but mentally lacking a bit of confidence. As the season's progressed, you can see that confidence is growing and growing and growing and growing. And I genuinely don't believe, Tom, that I still think there's a way to go with his confidence. And I think there's actually more ability to come. 3 seasons ago, there was a debate to say Rashford and Mbappe. I think Mbappe was still on top, but there was an argument to be had in terms of can Rashford go on and become one of the world's best players? From what you've seen of Rashford over the last month or so, is there a capability in him to enter that conversation? Can Marcus Rashford be a world-class player for you based on his rich vein of form over the last 2 months for United and for England? And if not, tell me why.
It's one of those defined world class, and here we are. I think he can go on and be a great player and sort of do fantastic things without being sort of world class. You can have world class ability and provide moments.
When you say world class, to simplify it, let's say any team in the world would want that player. I think any team in the world wants Mbappe. I think we can all agree on that.
But to start,
Rashford enter that conversation.
Look, Marcus Rashford in form walks into every I say every team, every squad. Every team will take Marcus Rashford in terms of the squad. You have him off the bench. Can he come in for 5-10 games and do a job? If he's in form, keep him in for the rest of the season. Marcus Rashford has that ability to perform at the highest level. It's in terms of doing that consistently. So he has the world-class ability. We've seen him go past players and put it in the top corner. Can he, for 6 weeks out of the season when things get tough in the middle of winter, sort of just do a defensive job and sort of ground it out for the team? That is where he needs to potentially sort of improve his consistency. But the main thing I'm happy with Marcus Rashford in at the moment, you're not hearing stupid leaks from the dressing room after a bad performance that Marcus Rashford's, the phone's ringing hot from PSG and Barcelona want him. I think there's no sort of stories about Marcus Rashford anymore. It's just about the football. And fingers crossed that can continue, because when it's just about the football with Marcus Rashford, he provides this form. It's when all that the off the field stuff sort of gets brought with him. That's when it starts to sort of weighs him down a little bit. And some of that is through his own doing. Some of that's through the unfair expectation we've placed on him because of the way he sort of burst onto the scene. So look, fingers crossed the football can continue for Marcus Rashford like this, because look, he's got Marcus Rashford MBE. He's Dr. Marcus Rashford. Wins a World Cup, he'll be Sir Marcus Rashford as well. And obviously got 2 more at the other end of the pitch in regards to Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire performing very well.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, they're both playing well. On England themselves, we'll obviously finish this video with who's your World Cup pick. But on England, can they go all the way? Have you seen enough from them to suggest they've got enough football in them? Or I guess the criticism around England has been they're quite pragmatic against the bigger sides. I won't even say pragmatic, I'll say reserved. Do you expect Southgate to revert back to 3 at the back? I think
they'll keep as against Senegal, and I think they should beat Senegal. If they play France and Mbappe, I think it's the right decision to go 3 at the back.
Maguire versus Mbappe.
But I think that's where Southgate does revert to 3, and look, he's going to come into so much criticism. We're going to say, you've won all your games playing 4 at the back. I think would be the right decision in terms of the way both teams play and the threat Mbappe poses. Would be the right decision, especially with Kyle Walker of the right side of that centre pairing. I think it would be the right thing to do 3 at the back.
All right, well, give me a one-word answer then. Can England go all the way? I'm not asking you if they'll win the World Cup. Can they?
Yeah, of course they can.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think their World Cup final is France in the quarterfinal. I think that is the discussion. If they get through France, the tournament is theirs, or theirs for the taking. The likelihood is France do them. And then we're talking about England crashing out the quarterfinals and all these problems, sack the manager, these players aren't good enough. That'll be the debate. But, yeah, Chris there saying Rashford hopefully will have a great season with United. I've seen a comment earlier from Chris as well in regards to Phil Foden. I don't like his haircut. Looks like he'd roll kids at Liverpool Westfields. Definitely, if anyone in Sydney doesn't know Liverpool, yeah, definitely Phil Foden. You could see him sort of bouncing around those shops or train station there. But Chris also here saying France, Spain, England, Brazil, not putting Argentina. So before you sort of move on, Brazil, maybe the last one in terms we haven't touched on them. Obviously, Man United's biggest contingent in regards to Tellez, Casemiro, Fred, and Anthony. Casemiro, we've sort of, I think, all sit here and agreed he's the best midfielder in the world at the moment, and that's not sort of over egging the pudding. I think he is performing like that. I'm just thinking at the start of the tournament, I did have those as favourites, and maybe that was a lazy argument from me. I just sort of the biggest names on paper, and no team really stood out as being the real favourites, and I just saw Brazil World Cup. They've got Neymar, they're sort of covered well in every position. I thought, yeah, okay, fair enough. They're the favourites. And obviously the bookies' favourites as well. So I did go with Brazil. And I probably am, to be fair, sticking with Brazil from what I have seen. But talk to me your feelings around Brazil and who you think will win.
Who I think will win, who's my favourite for the World Cup?
Yeah, who do you think will win the World Cup? And also a discussion around Brazil, like Brazil that team for you.
Sure. I like Brazil. They've been, with France, the most impressive for me. I like the control they have. I like the energy they play with. They press high up the pitch. They win the ball quickly when they lose it. The only question I would have over Brazil is, can they win the lot if Neymar's not fit? I don't think they can. The only limitation in that team at the moment is I don't see a creative outlet in the midfield. So I just wonder, where's the goal going to come from against the better sides who can potentially frustrate them? You talk about England and France. If England set up with a 5 at the back against Brazil, I don't know if Brazil can cut through them unless Neymar is playing. He's the only player in that team who's got the passing ability to cut through a defense, which is interesting because I think his strengths, when you think of Neymar, dribbling, speed, shooting, agility, he's the only one with the killer pass. I think Casemiro can do it, but not quite to the level of Neymar.
Well, they're not playing Bruno. The Bruno from Newcastle, he has found himself out, and Fred's sort of been playing. And so I think he's one who'll come in. It'll be interesting to see their third group game. They've obviously qualified. Neymar will be out of that game. So maybe that's a bit of a sort of test run for the manager to see what he can find. Hopefully, I think in the last game I saw Rafinha, in his first 2 games, Rafinha, he's done a job defensively, but nothing groundbreaking going forward. And Anthony's been coming off the bench. So I think in this, not dead rubber in their last group game, but I think Anthony will get the start in this group game. And if Anthony plays well, we had the discussion about Marcus Rashford starting the tournament on the bench and now being sort of in line to have the start in the round of 16. If Anthony has a good game the next day or two, I'm not sure when Brazil play. I think it's another 24 hours. So Anthony could be in with a start in the round of 16. But is there anything else? Well, actually, there was a comment here just a little bit earlier. Chris put up Netherlands. No one's talking about Netherlands. Cody Gakpo. We're talking about if they're banging in goals and Cody Gakpo. Yeah, but you just need a goal scorer at this stage of the World Cup. And if Cody Gakpo is banging in goals, your thoughts on that in regards to the World Cup, but also as a Man United fan, is he shooting his way to a move to Man United?
I think he is, but the problem with Gakpo is he's adding a whole lot of money to his transfer value. And I'm just wondering, is he pricing himself out of a move for United? Because it's time and time again with United, isn't it, Tom? Like you hear, it was 50 million in the summer. He kills it. He's going to be worth 80 million by the time this World Cup's over. It's really complicated. We'll see what happens. But
you're a bit disappointed that you're not hearing from Man United in terms of the Man United sources that, look, obviously a very hard deal to do with Gakpo at the moment. He's concentrating on the World Cup, let him be, and we shouldn't be interfering with Gakpo in terms of personal negotiations. But with PSV, should we be going in and getting this deal done now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely we should be. I think, Fabrizio Romano did mention that United are in contact with Gakpo's agents, but I think they'll look to agree player terms initially before they, I suppose, go to negotiate with PSV, which is probably the smart move, I got to be honest, because you don't want to be negotiating with a player in the January window. You got 4 weeks to secure the player. You want to know he's over the line before you go to the club, so then you can spend the month haggling over the price, I think. So we'll see what happens on that front. But in terms of the Netherlands, I like what they do with the ball, Chris. I just think against better sides, I don't think they can keep a clean sheet. And I don't think outside of Gakpo, I don't know if they've got enough goals in them. So that's the only problem. I could see them conceding a lot against a France, against a Spain, against an England. And I don't see them having 2 or 3 goals in them.
Well, who do I just saw the tournament tree there a little bit earlier. Netherlands have in the round of 16. Netherlands have USA. So look,
USA.
suddenly
Australia
they're in a.
could be versing them. But if we're following that ladder, Argentina versus Netherlands, you can't find me back in the Netherlands in that one. I just can't see it.
No, definitely interested. And look, in 24 hours' time, we'll have a far better picture of the other side of the tree and who can potentially play each other further on down the tournament. But is there anything, whether it be Man United related or World Cup related, you do want to touch on any talking points before we wrap up?
We haven't. Either of us haven't said our winners, so I'll go first.
So Brazil.
My heart says Brazil.
I'm still clinging to a Portugal Argentina final, but I think one of them gets knocked out, maybe quarters or semi.
I'll say Brazil, but right behind it, something in me says Portugal. Something in me says Portugal.
And here we are. We'll wax lyrical about France.
Sorry?
But here we are, and look, you're right, but here we are, we're sort of talking about how dangerous France can be, and France should really be getting past them.
Again, I think when it comes to massive games, and maybe this is just a skewed thought of mine, I've never seen a team without a world-class midfield win the World Cup. And I'm looking at France at the moment, and without Pogba and without Kante there, I think they'll come short against the bigger sides. It's just my opinion. I think they can obviously score goals. And of course, they can win it. But I think that's where, and not just the caliber of player, the experience as well. You want experience in the middle of the park. The midfield's your engine. In those bigger games, you got kids in there who are going to be feeling frantic. And with all due respect to Rabiot, he's not Kante, he's not Pogba. I like Camavinga. I like Tchouaméni. I don't think those boys are at the level of Kante and Pogba just yet. I think you're asking a lot for kids to lead you through to a World Cup in the midfield. So that's the only thing deterring me from France.
Definitely Stephen here in regards to clinging like a dog to a sheep, Tom, in regards to the Portugal-Argentina final. Just that hypothetical, Larry, now sort of opinions rightly change every couple of days in regards to Portugal-Argentina, in regards to our relationship with Ronaldo. 6 weeks ago, would have been Portugal. Ronaldo's our GOAT. Portugal are the favourites in that, or we want to win that match. If the dream scenario does arrive where it is Portugal and Argentina, given our current sort of feelings towards Ronaldo, now mine's maybe have sort of subsided a little bit compared to a lot of people, but your feelings now, if it's Portugal-Argentina, are you Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot, and maybe a side of Cristiano Ronaldo or Lisandro Martinez? Who are you sort of hoping for a win?
I love Bruno, man. You know that. I bloody love Bruno. You know what? I like to think I'm fairly impartial. When it comes to Bruno, I do cast a blind eye. I just love the guy. I mean, Martinez is another level of passion that you fall in love with, but Bruno's pretty passionate himself. And Bruno's been there longer. Bruno's a good guy, man. Bruno's a good guy. I'm all in on Portugal. And look, I'm upset with Ronaldo at the moment, but you know, I'll love him in 3 months once all of this has subsided and he signs with some Saudi Arabian team.
Look, that deal, we'll finish on that. I'm sure we'll do a longer video when that, or if it potentially does happen, and we'll have an answer in a few weeks' time. But if he goes to this Saudi Arabian club, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but they reckon, £200 million a year. Now, I don't know what Ronaldo would earn at United a year. I assume maybe a little bit under 20 million a year. No, he's got all these endorsements, but I assume his wages be 15 to 20 million pound a year. If he's been offered 200 million, I think a lot of people have taken the higher ground and sort of pointing and laughing, saying, what a bad move. Look at him. He's playing in Saudi Arabia. If someone is going to pay you 200 million a year, I don't think Ronaldo cares.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's a shame. You'd like to see him play in Europe. I understand that, but it's a different kind of money.
Yeah, I hear, and that's the thing. To be honest, if you're Ronaldo, who gives a shit what anyone says? It's the final contract, realistically, of his career. Go make as much money as you can. Why not? He's got nothing left literally nothing left to achieve in Europe, in the club European game. He's won it all. What's left for him to do? I think his Champions League record, like we said, Haaland would need to put up some crazy numbers for 16 years to get even close to that. And to be honest, I don't think Haaland will. Ronaldo's legacy is cemented. Go earn as much money as you can. Go experience another part of the world. good luck to him.
And Stephen right here, he had a few more Champions League goals. Doesn't have to say which Champions League, but
On
he can
Ronaldo
knock
as
them
well,
in.
Tom. So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but while I don't agree with his conduct, he could have easily kicked a fuss about the money owed to him by United. He left quietly. He allowed the contract to be mutually terminated, and he hasn't made a fuss. It wasn't about money. He could have dragged United through the mud, and he chose not to.
I'll tell you well, he kind of look. I honestly he didn't, but with the interview, like it depends how you look at it. But you're right in regards to one thing we always label at these players, whether it be Ronaldo or anyone through the past played at Man United. Every fan of every club does this. We all sit here and say when a player's sort of a bit unhappy and sort of wants out, we say if you don't want to be here, leave.
He did.
Ronaldo's first player in history to do it. He didn't like it. Said, "F this, I'll get out how I can, and I'll leave." And look, ultimately, we're very critical and rightly so in terms of how he's done it. But ultimately, we would have preferred a different sort of avenue for him to take. But ultimately, the result of what we sort of demanded of a player who doesn't want to be there, we got exactly what we wanted. So I'm not taking my hat off to Ronaldo, but you kind of have to compared what we've sort of demanded of players in his position in the past.
Exactly. So, some credit has to go there. Look, Ronaldo is Ronaldo. I think is a very unique individual, and I'll put it that way. And yeah, he might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I suppose, I found his whole protest around the goal. Look, it's comical, but that's what's made him the best for so long.
I just found it funny. Like, I just smiled and sort of looked, the cheek of him to do that. And I sort of thought nothing of it. I thought, okay, it's who it is. A bit weird, but I thought, okay, crack on. 3 days later, they're still getting tactical analysis over, and I think, God, like it's not that deep because
he disputed it. Let's not also forget that. Yes, you can be critical from journalism side of things for making a story out of it. Portugal are the ones who wanted to contest.
Yeah, that blue tick who did that story was one of the new blue ticks. That wasn't an official account, that story. And it wasn't an official release from FIFA that said that they disputed or said there was technology in the goal. That was nothing official. That's very... I'd look a little bit deeper into that story. In regards to look at Ronaldo's reaction with Bruno Fernandes after, we've seen the thing, you touched my hair. Roll on 20 seconds later in mobile phone footage, he's hugging Bruno Fernandes and having a smile with him. Obviously,
yeah, but did you see when the game ended how he carried on?
Yeah, no, exactly. That one where he's pointing to his head saying, brush my hair. Carry that footage on mobile phone footage, not the clip we saw, but the mobile phone footage from the crowd. After he does that, he meets up with Bruno Fernandes and hugging him and smiling and thinking, well, that's not shown.
Well, he doesn't. His issue is not with Bruno. His issue is with whoever's keeping the score sheet.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like, look, I understand, and look, I just thought,
I'm sure Bruno doesn't give a shit either. Yeah. To be honest, I think ultimately Bruno wants Portugal to go through, as does Ronaldo. But ultimately, look, the reason this guy talks about being, he's now infamous line of, I don't chase records, records chase me. He literally lives and breathes scoring goals. So when you are like that, you know who else would carry on the way he did? Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Yeah.
When all you care about is scoring goals, that's how you act. And that's why these guys are world-class goal scorers.
I've been in position once. So I was standing next to a goalkeeper. A cross came in and I don't jump on the corners. I was standing next to the goalkeeper just trying to put him off. And a guy put a rocket header down it. I felt it. It hit my shoelace. Didn't touch me. I didn't touch my boot. Didn't affect the ball at all. But I felt it hit my shoelace, hit the ground, and bounced in the goal. It felt like my goal because I felt it hit my shoelace. Now, whether he felt it hit his hair or felt wind hit the hair, he obviously felt something. Now, was that enough to get his goal? No. But in terms of, yes, his natural reaction, in terms of his unique sort of personality and sort of mentality and the way he sort of demands these records of himself, you can, look, yeah, I don't agree with it. A bit cheeky of him, a bit shameless. But it is who he is. Those things happen in games sometimes.
And if those players win you games, you'll learn to accept it. And Ronaldo...
but Portugal have more than accepted it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And what Ronaldo's achieved for Portugal time and time again for the last over 10 years, I think you can live with a bit of petulance. He's earned the right. You know what I mean? This isn't... If Harry Kane acted the same, I'd take more exception to it. Ronaldo's achieved everything there is to achieve in the game.
Now, well, fingers crossed we can look, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, I think just as football fans, I think we are still, maybe I'm in the minority, but still just clinging to that Portugal-Argentina final. But hopefully Argentina aren't in a position because fingers crossed Australia can get the job done and shock the world and Australia can go one step further. And look, hopefully, besides Australia, hopefully a Manchester United player is one to bring football home, whether that be the England players or the Brazil players. We need to see that World Cup in a Manchester United players' hands come at the end of December. But Larry, been an absolute pleasure. Pleasure chatting to everyone in the live chat as well. If you did enjoy a bit of World Cup discussion, please do leave a like on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. If you are new, hit that subscribe button. Also, hit the notification bell so when we do go live, you can always sort of join us in the chat and sort of get all your opinions across. That would be very much appreciated. Larry, anything else to add, mate?
I think England will play on Sunday morning, if I've got that right. So stay tuned for that. Definitely.
Well, that's when Australia play. I don't think they play on the same day as Australia. I've got them here. We have England against Senegal Monday morning, 6 a.m. Sydney time. So it'll be Sunday night UK time.
Lots of football to review. So if you're worried about content, don't worry. We got you covered.
No, definitely. Both Manchester United and World Cup content coming your way. But until then, hope everyone has a good couple of days or so, and we'll chat to you when the next bit of news is out. Until then, have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.